Dreaming of building a home, but having nightmares about the actual construction process? What if you could expedite the build and minimize that discomfort without compromising quality? Prefab homes are touted for their rapid assembly. Today we'll explore whether building a prefab home actually outpaces conventional construction. Let's get into it. If you've been following the channel, you know that we're building a prefab home on our property in Colorado. What I haven't mentioned before is this is the fifth house I've had built in my life. The first four were all built using conventional construction, and the main reason we've chosen to go prefab this time is for the speed. There are 8 basic steps to building a home. Let's take a look at each one and compare the time it takes for prefab versus conventional construction. First, for anyone who's not familiar with the term prefab home, you can think of it like IKEA, but for houses. These are kit, panelized, or modular homes, and depending on which of those options you choose, it'll be assembled to different degrees in a factory, then transported to the building site and set on the foundation. The benefits to this type of construction are that the building is done in a controlled environment, it can be completed more quickly, and may be less expensive than conventional construction. Manufactured homes are also sometimes referred to as prefab homes, but I consider them in a different category. These houses are built on trailers, are generally less expensive, but don't meet state and local building codes. With that background, let's take a look at each of the steps in the home building process. Finding the right builder and floor plan combination is the first step in building a house. It took me about a year to find a prefab home manufacturer that we wanted to work with, who had a floor plan that we loved and would deliver to our building site. That process could go a lot more quickly for you, especially if you find a YouTuber who's already done a bunch of the research. In conventional construction, it could take a couple of months to find a builder to build a custom home. You'd want to interview the local contractors, visit their active building sites, and check their references. When you made a decision, you get on their schedule. And then, depending on how busy they are, it could take months to get to the top of the list. So for speed of completing step 1, I have to give a slight advantage to the prefab home. When it comes to design and plans, the speed advantage definitely goes to the prefab home, because most of the design work is done by the manufacturer when they launch a new model. Whatever customizations you'd want would need to be incorporated, but unless you're making major changes, the manufacturer might spend a couple of weeks working with you on the design, and then about 4 weeks to finish your plans. For a custom home, completing the design and plans can take months and many hours of your time meeting with the designer or architect. When you choose a prefab home, you can either hire a general contractor to manage the process or do it yourself. If you take it on, finalizing the budget can take some time. You'd need to get estimates for the site work, the utility connections, and any subcontractors that you'd need to finish the home. All of that might take about the same amount of time for conventional construction, but the builder'd be doing it rather than you. Once the budget is finalized, you have to secure the financing. And getting a loan for a prefab home, especially if you don't hire a general contractor, isn't easy. If you go with conventional construction, most builders can recommend banks that they've worked with in the past. So for this step, I have to give the speed advantage to conventional construction. Once your plans are complete, you've finalized your budget and secured your financing, you can submit your plans to the local building authority for your permits. The speed advantage for this step goes to the prefab home because the plans you'd be submitting would likely have been reviewed many times by many different building inspectors and refined each time to streamline that process. Reviewing the plans for a custom home could take longer because the inspector might have more questions or require more revisions. The time required to prepare the building site would likely be the same whether you choose a prefab home or conventional construction. Excavating and grading the site, pouring the foundation, and trenching the utilities would have to be done no matter what. So there's no speed advantage one way or the other for this step. In a previous video, I described the prefab house that we're building from Studio Shed. The model that we've chosen is panelized, and if you want to know more about that, I'll link to that video at the end of this one. But from a timing perspective, Studio Shed will have our house ready to ship within 2 to 4 weeks after we receive our building permit. With conventional construction, it would be unusual to deliver all of the building materials to the site at the same time. That's because the materials would have to be placed out of the way and then might be exposed to the weather until they were used. So with conventional construction, multiple deliveries are usually scheduled throughout the building process. And the more deliveries there are, the more chances there are for things to go wrong and delays to happen. So for this step, I have to give the speed advantage to the prefab home. This is the step where prefab homes really outpace conventional construction. The prefab home we're building is panelized, meaning that the walls, including the doors, windows, and sheeting, are all assembled in the factory. We've hired one of the contractors in Studio Shed's network to assemble the shell, and about a week after the building materials arrive on the site, our house will be dried in. That means that it'll have its roof, doors, windows, siding, and trim. Basically, it'll be finished from the outside, so we can begin the interior work completely protected from the weather. And if you were doing a modular home, the assembly process might only take a day or two. In conventional construction, getting the house to the point of being dried in would probably take around 8 weeks, and that assumes that there aren't any delays for bad weather. Finishing that house will take the same amount of time whether you choose prefab or conventional construction. This includes the electrical, plumbing, insulation, drywall, flooring, trim, cabinetry, fixtures, paint, and appliances. The speed advantage you might find here, depending on the prefab home you choose, is that most everything you needed to finish the house might be included in the package. That would save you the time of shopping for the plumbing and lighting fixtures, appliances, and other furnishings. So there you have it. Building a prefab home really is faster. It's not uncommon for a conventionally built custom home to take anywhere from 10 months to 2 years to finish. Whereas Studio Shed estimates their houses can be completed in around 3.5 months, plus the time it takes to get your building permit, which can vary greatly depending on the jurisdiction. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with anyone who's considering a prefab home, and subscribe for more in-depth guides on prefab home building and design. If you have any questions or want to share your prefab home experiences, please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. And thanks for watching. I'll see you the next time.